Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
It was a report in the Albany Times-Union, and they said over the weekend, National Grid and other utilities are spending billions of dollars to prep New York's electric grid for a generational shift, and it includes things like all of those AI data centers that are being built in the state and across the country, really.
Yeah, the paper went on to note that New York utilities are spending that much money to modernize the grid for those facilities. Their investments for New Yorkers, many of whom are already struggling with utility costs, are going to have to pay for that in the coming years. But the idea is that we're prepping it for the future.
Exactly. But so how uncomfortable as the build out happens and the stress on the grid continues. Let's see what our next guest has to say. We've been looking forward to this. Sally Librera is President, National Grid New York. It's a subsidiary of the publicly held electricity, nat gas, and clean energy utility, National Grid PLC, serving millions in New York and Massachusetts. National Grid ADRs trade in the U.S. They've got about a $75 billion market cap. They're up more than 27% year to date. So nice to have you here. How are you?
Great to be here. Thanks, Carol and Tim, for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. How would you describe power demand today and how that demand is growing, surging? Use whatever word makes sense so that we understand what's the current situation.
Sure. So at National Grid in New York, we serve more than 4 million customers, and we deliver natural gas and electricity to those customers, and our focus is on doing it safely, reliably, and affordably. But the reality is there is increasing demand for energy across the entire state. And we serve through upstate, we serve in Long Island, and we also serve in New York City. And it's our job to deliver that energy, to meet that energy demand where, when, and how folks need it.
How would you quantify that demand, though? Give us some idea, because we're talking nonstop about deals of AI data centers, whether it's New York or elsewhere. Give us an idea. How stressed is the situation?
So we work with our New York independent system operator, the NYISO.
Yeah.
And NYISO manages what we call the large load queue. So it's essentially the companies that have indicated wanting to hook into the New York grid that have large power needs. And they estimate that the cumulative power need across those companies that are essentially in line to connect sometime over the next 5 or so years is about 10 gigawatts of energy. And so just to give you some context, at our peak in New York, we demand about 3 times that across the entire state. And another really important point is that 1 year ago, that queue was 1/3 the size. It literally tripled in just 1 year.
All data centers?
No, not all data centers.
What is it then? Because it does seem like for many years, we thought that power demand across the country would actually stay relatively flat. And it did stay relatively flat. But just in recent years, we've seen so much of an uptick in demand. What are you seeing on your grids?
Well, there definitely is the impact of data centers, but New York is also very attractive to manufacturing, and large-scale manufacturing, particularly some of the modern manufacturing we see around semiconductors and computer components. It's very energy intensive, and companies with big power needs are drawn to New York. And we are working to make sure that they have the power that they need, not just today, but well into the future.
So it's interesting, right? Because we think about this White House, right? And encouraging investment from foreign companies to build here. I mean, I guess, that's the good thing, right? We want to see other companies investing into the United States, but there's a power grab on that too, right? As a result of that, in order to meet that.
Well,
potentially.
I think it is important to note that even if we weren't at this unique moment in time with rapidly increasing demand for power, we still have a grid in New York, and this is true across many places in the country. We have a grid that needs investment. We have assets that are close to 100 years old.
Why, right, Tim? Like, how many people, why, if it's 100 years old, why 20 years ago, right?
Why didn't we make the investment then?
Yeah.
We've been...
Politics, I'm guessing part of it.
That was a long pause.
Please, you answer the question.
Trying to understand, because it's important.
We have been very careful about balancing the bill impacts which customers bear with the investments that we make in our infrastructure. And even today, where we look at assets that are 70, 80, 100 years old, we're very strategic and pinpointed about which of those assets, which of those parts of infrastructure we replace, because we want to keep customer bills low. low. So we look for those opportunities where we can do multiple things with an investment, where we can replace an aging asset with something that's more modern and something that can carry more energy, something that can unlock more energy that our generators have to connect into the grid, and something that's going to be more resilient to storms and better leverage technology so it's cheaper to maintain.
Does more resilient to storms mean burying power lines? Is that the way to do it?
In some cases we do that, but it's also the type of infrastructure that we put up. We are replacing in places sometimes wooden poles with steel poles, just much stronger infrastructure.
Well, and I think about how do you balance all of that? Like affordability, as you know, has become quite the word that we are hearing a lot, certainly in the political environment. So how do you keep your investors happy and the grid reliable without rising bills that make your customers furious and invite regulatory and political pushback? I mean, that is a hard mandate.
It is a difficult balance, and it's one that we navigate every single day. We do it through a number of avenues. We certainly work closely with our customers to help them manage costs, and we do that through a variety of bill assistance programs and energy efficiency programs and rebates. And we have consumer advocates whose job it is to specifically work with folks in communities to help them manage their costs. We also, as I mentioned before, are very careful about where and how we invest in assets, and we make sure that if we're investing in an asset, that we're going to get more power from investing in that asset, that we're going to get more resiliency, and that we're going to get more efficiency from investing in that asset.
The president has been outspoken about his disdain for certain renewables, especially wind power. Your investment in renewables or sourcing energy from renewables, has that changed under this administration?
Well, we certainly support the all of the above energy approach, and are pleased with the most recent version of the state energy report that's just come out today that leans into an all of the above approach. Given the rate at which demand for energy is increasing, we need to be utilizing all of those opportunities, from renewables to natural gas to nuclear, to make sure that folks
is that
have
more
the energy
difficult if the federal government is not supportive of certain renewables?
We are working on the infrastructure to move power from point A to point B. So while we support projects like, say, the Nessie pipeline, that's a supply project. It's not our project, but we support it because we know how critical it is to the downstate community and how reliant New York City and Long Island are on natural gas, and how thin that reserve margin is. And their demand for energy is growing as well. So we support Nessie for those reasons. The other side of our business is about building transmission. It's about building the highway over which the power moves. So the sourcing as to where it's coming from isn't a national grid decision. We work with generators of all kinds.
Bottom line, though, does this potentially, as you guys are very careful about when you invest so that power prices don't go up, but are there going to be moments where prices are just going to go up just because of the environment, and it's hard to kind of predict everything? And forgive me, just got about 30 seconds.
There are moments, and now is one of those moments where customers are seeing increases on their bills, and that's for a number of reasons, but primarily it's to be investing in infrastructure that is necessary. Those investments are necessary to make sure that folks continue to have the safe and reliable energy that they need.
And those investments include renewables, green, all of it.
Well, we're investing in the ability to unlock those energy sources and be able to bring them onto the grid and move them at a greater frequency.